All right, it's 9 o'clock and let us begin our first morning ritual. We will do our heart-focused breathing. And in this particular instance, what we want to do is place your awareness in the area of your heart. Take slow, deep breaths and visualize these flowing in and out of your heart area. Taking slow and deep breaths. So let us begin to take some deep breaths in as the ball rolls up. Visualize these flowing into your heart and exhale. Inhale. Beautiful. Just begin to feel your body slow down, become more centered. And you'll notice things in your body that you hadn't noticed because you've become more present. As you take those deep breaths in, just feel your chest fill up in your heart area. And as you exhale, exhale with that feeling of love that would come out of your heart. Deep breaths in and out. Put a gentle smile on your face. Wonderful. And don't worry if you get these thoughts coming through your head, just allow it to pass through it. Whenever you do a heart-focused breathing like this, your body will begin to process a lot of things that you perhaps have not been processing consciously. And so it's an opportunity for you to actually begin to process some of these things because they need processing. And with heart-focused breathing, the power of your heart can transmute a lot of the negative emotions simply by just taking the deep breaths in and visualize these breaths flowing in and out of your heart. Wonderful. Beautiful. Excellent. Now, if you have your eyes closed, you may open it now. Today's session is about how your heart can actually transform chaos or chaotic thinking, or even chaos around the world. quite often we feel that the world events are causing us to feel the pain of others. And that is actually a double-edged sword. It's because our heart is so open, and yet we feel. And so what we want to do today is to take that chaotic systems that are happening around the world. People are feeling chaos, and to try and keep ourselves not only centered, but to contribute to by using the power of our hearts, contribute to lessen the chaotic behavior. Now let's take a look at something that actually happened in our recent memory. Here's an example of a chaotic situation and the power of our heart. Most of us will remember the events surrounding September 11th attacks on the Twin Towers in New York. But what most of us do not really know is that there were random number generators that the universities across North America use. And these random number generators are there to, any kind of mathematics that requires random number generators, they pull from these random numbers. So for example, if on the East Coast, a computer generates a number of 0.1, on the West Coast, the number should be way far away from 0.1. It should actually be somewhere near 0.9. That's the randomness factor. If something that caused a number to pop up at 0.1 on the West Coast and a 0.12 on the East Coast, that's not random. That's actually very coherent. Now, interestingly enough, if you look at the chart for a second, you will see that just before where the three lines are, the three dots, the red dots here that I'm circling, just before that, we saw this is, if these little area here is the appropriate level of randomness that needs to happen. So for example, in this particular area here is normal operating of the random number generators right here. But look what happened just before the attacks happened. All of these systems became less random. And becoming less random is actually becoming more coherent. And during the times of the attacks, the coherence peak, that means all the random number generators were no longer becoming random. They were actually lining up to be very similar. And just after the attacks, you saw it going back and back up. And so scientists across the globe were wondering, well, this has never happened. This is like 1 in a trillion chance that something like this would happen ever. And so they began looking into this. And there's an organization called the Global Consciousness Project. And they're a volunteer collaboration of about 100 researchers and analysts. And what they have done is they have started looking at this and other events that are globally significant events, like the hurricanes and things like that. And they've started mapping what's happening to the random number generators when these major events take place. Now, their conclusion on these observations are the behavior of our network of random sources is correlated with interconnected human consciousness on a global scale. What they're trying to say is that the human heart caused these chaotic conditions to become more coherent. So for example, let's go back to the original chat about the 9/11 attacks. Now, interestingly enough, if we go back, let's just look at the time of the attacks where we've got the red circle with the three dots here. During the time of the attacks, all the random number generators were less random. Now, this was covered in CNN and other news broadcasts. I remember where I was, and I remember watching CNN broadcasts, and it kept replaying it over and over again. And it doesn't matter which time zone you were in, you tuned in at the same time as people in a different time zone because you were watching it as the news was being released. And so every human heart was focused on that event in New York at that time. And every human heart was feeling anxiety, fear, and all sorts of things. And in some cases, when they heard stories about survivors, stories about how firemen were able to become the heroes, their anxiety turned into hope and then it turned into compassion for the families that were lost. And so every human heart had the same frequency of emotions coming, and when all of that added together caused this chaotic random things that were happening on the computers become more coherent. And so human consciousness actually shifted the random number generators. And that is a hypothesis. Now, of course, you can't measure that, but there are a lot of events that correlate that way. And so here's the interesting part of all of this. Random number generators became less random few minutes before the actual planes hit the towers. People weren't consciously aware that that was happening. And yet, there was something in the air that caused these random number generators becoming less random, closer to the attacks, even before the attacks happened or anybody consciously knew. So there's a human heart, a global human heart, that senses something coming unconsciously. And your heart can do that. So now, let's move on to the next phase of our program, and let us do a quick coherence technique. And in this quick coherence technique, we will add one more layer to it. We will add the feeling of appreciation and compassion. Now, after the explanation I gave just earlier, there is about 10 of us on this call right now, or on this webinar. If we all focus with compassion and love, and using the third step and experience positive feelings, we can actually not only change the chaotic feelings around our own self, but others as well, and perhaps globe. Because there's a huge magnetic field that surrounds the earth, because the earth has a magnetic field of its own. And our hearts have a magnetic field. And if our hearts broadcast a feeling of appreciation and love, that frequency of emotion connects to the earth, which is then transmitted throughout. So let us, the 10 of us, help 100 of us, because that's the power of amplification when it comes to this technique. So let us begin our process. So our steps are: we will place awareness in the area of our hearts. We will take slow, deep breaths and visualize these flowing in and out of our heart area, just like before. That's a heart-focused breathing technique. And then we're going to experience a positive feeling, such as love, appreciation, and peace. So let us begin this. Begin to take slow, deep breaths and visualize these flowing in and out of your heart area. And now begin the feeling of appreciation, love, and compassion. And direct these to surround you, or surround your family members who are not physically with you, but perhaps they're somewhere else, because the heart is multi-dimensional in nature. And so with all of us doing this and focused in this love and compassion at the same time, our energy, our magnetic field is affecting thousands around the globe right now. That is the power of gathering. So let us continue this deep breaths in your heart. Exhale while experiencing love, compassion. And bring forward those emotions, those thoughts, that feeling. Your body doesn't know the difference whether you're experiencing love and compassion right now in front of you as it's unfolding, or you're recalling a past memory. Your body is very intelligent. All you have to do is guide it. And this is one way of guiding it, to say everything's okay, everything's fine. Deep breaths. Wonderful. And bring yourself back to this moment. And now let's answer some questions if you have any. If not, thank you for joining me. Your 15 minutes are up. Anar has a question. Can you use heart math to forgive yourself and others? The short answer is absolutely yes. Can you use heart math to forgive yourself and others? The short answer is absolutely yes. The long answer is here now. The long answer is that heart math can actually get you to a place where you take away the intensity of the emotion that's stopping you from forgiving somebody. Heart math brings you to a point of choice where anything that is not serving you, emotions, are put away. And you can then say from that point, saying, am I ready to forgive? And it's actually your free will that allows you to make that leap. Heart math doesn't push you into that direction. It just creates the conditions around which it is primed to do what's best for your path. So perhaps you're not ready to forgive yourself. Perhaps you're not ready to forgive others. But what heart math will do is gently bring you to that point where you can find wisdom in that forgiveness or at that point. So, the first time you may do the heart math technique and you may say, I want to forgive myself. We always want to forgive ourselves before we forgive others. Otherwise, there's nothing left in our vessel to forgive others with. We must forgive ourselves first. So ask yourself this question as you're doing this quick coherence technique, and take the deep breaths and experience this positive emotions. And then ask yourself, am I ready to forgive myself? And if the answer is yes, more than likely you will feel that emotional surge come up and that loving feeling come up. And the best way to actually process that is to actually look at yourself as a child that is looking for forgiveness. We often can't forgive ourselves when we look at ourselves as an adult, but it's hard for us not to forgive a child. So all we do to make that slight leap into forgiveness is to actually look at this child that is us as a child. Picture us as when we were a baby or a child or a toddler, and have that look in that child's eye and say, and have the child speak to you about forgiving the child, because that is really you asking for forgiveness. And then you will be moved to take that child, hug that child, and shed a tear and forgive that child. That is the process of forgiving yourself. Once you do that, and it may take almost instantly, and I've seen it done instantly, or it may take a little while, but be persistent. Be persistent. Then when you're ready, when you've forgiven yourself, at least the first layer of forgiveness, because these things will come up in layers, but the first layer of forgiveness, then you can begin. Take a break, but you can also begin now to see the other person as a child who's looking for forgiveness. So not belittling them, but essentially just visualize this individual as nothing but an innocent child who's seeking forgiveness. And what is your response to that? That is the technique I recommend you use, along with heart math breathing techniques, to forgive yourself and others. I hope that helps. Sandy has a good question. Is there a potential one can follow, or a protocol, is there a protocol one can follow for a quick tune-up throughout the day? Absolutely. It's the protocol that I mentioned earlier was archway technique, and you use the heart focus breathing, or even the quick coherence technique, the 3 steps that we just went through. And the protocol is that anytime you program yourself, anytime you pass a doorway or an archway, you remind yourself to take those deep breaths in and out. Even if you just do the deep breaths in without emotions, without anything else, just take the deep breaths in and train yourself to go through that. The heart focus breathing technique is very powerful because it stops the energy drain from happening. When you stop the energy drain, you preserve more of your energy. If you're able to muster up and find a technique where or an opportunity where you can smile a bit or feel happiness and lighter, that actually throws fuel into the thing, where you actually not only stop the energy leaks, but you start building the energy within you. And that is something that also boosts your immune system. So yes, use the archway principle. Anytime you go through an archway, do this technique, because you'll pass through many archways and it'll become a part of your trigger all the time. So I'd suggest that as a protocol. And if you are having a hard time reaching for that positive feeling, and you have access to Facebook on your smartphone as you're on the go or on your desktop, just go to Your Happy Thoughts channel on Facebook. That's where we, I make sure that anything that's published there is nothing but lighthearted, funny. I put a few over the week. There's other people who contribute to these things, and there's some really funny clips there that kind of lightens your mood, and you forget about the anxiety. So you want to check in that maybe once or twice a day, and just feel lighter, and then you're on your way. I hope that helps, Sandy. Yes, Zara, breathing is the key. When you slow your breathing down, there is actually a biological response. It's to your autonomic nervous system. Your autonomic nervous system actually controls 90% of your automatic functions in your body. Things like heartbeats, enzyme production, your breath. You don't think about, okay, I gotta breathe now. It's just automatic, natural. Your eye blinking, things like that. So what happens is the autonomic nervous system is connected directly into your heart. On the parasympathetic and the sympathetic side, it's connected. As a matter of fact, patients who've had heart transplants, surgeons have had to cut the pathways, the actual fibers that connect the autonomic nervous system to the heart, in order to transplant that heart. And what they found is it doesn't take too long for those fibers to actually go back and attach to the heart automatically. Your body is very intelligent, because your heart is connected to the autonomic nervous system, and it controls 90% of your automatic functions, which means that all you have to do is tell your body you're in fear, and your body responds accordingly. It shuts down your immune system, or it begins to shut down your immune system, because to your body, immune system and maintaining that is not important if you're facing danger right now. You got to run. You got to divert all that energy away from that to run. And that's the key, is actually allowing that heart breathing technique, slow breathing technique, which actually is the signal to your body saying, everything's fine. Keep my immune system boosted up. Make my intelligence to the potential that I have. Do not short circuit the long-term thinking and the strategic thinking, and do not make me more reactive. That's what slow breathing does. So breathing is very important. So the protocol is just breathe. And if you go through the archway and you program yourself, you will see yourself doing this automatically. You won't even know you're doing it. I do this when I wake up in the morning. I mentioned earlier. As soon as I wake up in the morning, my body just begins to go like this. It's just normal and natural. And so I don't have to consciously now do these techniques, because it's happening all the time. Does that help? Oh, wonderful, Sandy. Thank you. Name of the Facebook page again is Your Happy Thoughts channel. If you open up my last email and the one that I'm about to send you, you will see the link to that Facebook page. So you will, in a day or so, I'll send out this replay, and the link will be there as well. Do this technique for at least 5 to 15 minutes a day, every day, and you will see yourself, the way you approach life shifts. People will actually tell you that you're different. You won't notice it yourself. It's happened to me, it's happened to others, and this really works. Wonderful, Natalie. Thank you. You have a wonderful week as well. Okay, if there's nothing more, I'm accessible by email or phone. Feel free to drop me a note, and I hope you're able to contribute to the Your Happy Thoughts channel. Just post a video. I always moderate it to make sure that it's appropriate for family viewing, so that it makes you feel lighter. All right? So have a very, very good week, everyone, and I look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay. Das war auch bewerten. Es ist scheißegal, wie das schmeckt. Also, okay. Nochmal.
Ich trau mich über das.